Following is a production of Locked Up Sports.
Everybody, this is Don LaGreca from the Michael K. Show. When it comes to talking sports, Bob Walters and Brett Grasso are the authority.
Can't wait.
When it comes to talking sports, they're the authority. It's Bob Walters and Brett Grasso. It's Locked Up Sports, and it starts now.
Bring them out, hey. Bring them out, yeah. Bring them out, hey. Bring them out.
Here we go. Bob Walters from the Brian Gunzel Studios. This is Locked Up Sports. We got a big one for you here today. The Giants' offense is non-existent in a Thursday night loss to San Francisco. The Jets try to beat the Patriots for the first time in 7 years as multiple quarterbacks say no to their offer to come in and help the team out. The Wildcard races heat up in baseball as it makes the turn for home in its final 10 days of the season. And we speak with Marty Smith of ESPN College Game Day about his new book, Sideline CEO. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Bob Walters. And listen, the Giants, let's start with the Giants. As always, the Giants they got themselves killed last night, okay? It was basically exactly what we thought it was going to be. The offensive line could not protect Jones again, okay? It was the same story we've seen now for 5 out of the 6 halves. And it's been the same thing. The Giants have no offense. You can't score 12 points in this league and win. Now, listen, last night we didn't expect much. Last night we didn't expect this team to come out and win. You thought maybe they'd carry a little momentum in from the big comeback in Arizona, but when Barkley was ruled out and when Thomas was ruled out, you knew it was going to be tough for this team to even come in and compete against the San Francisco team who is ready and primed to, make a run at a Super Bowl this year. The Giants just are not ready. I told you before the season that maybe you're going to have to tamper expectations a bit, but this team is worse than I thought they were. I mean, if you can't block anybody, offensive line can't block the front four, nothing is going to happen. The play breaks down. No matter what the play is, it breaks down. Okay, it's going to break down. Nothing's going to happen. You're going to have your quarterback running for his life. You're going to have your quarterback getting hit, and that's what happened last night. I mean, Jones was 22 of 32 for 137 yards. The Giants rushed for 29 yards. I mean, just some of these numbers. The total yards were 441 for the Niners, 150 for the Giants. The Giants had 121 pass yards to the Niners, 300. The Giants were 3 for 12 on third down. They only gave up 2 sacks, which is amazing to me, that they only gave up 2 sacks. But listen, it is what it is. It's the Giants really are not a good team right now. They're going to have to get this straightened out real fast. They got Seattle now this week. They got an extra couple days to prepare for it. And again, now we're back where we were last week with a game that now they're going to have to win because the Eagles are 2-0. The Cowboys are 2-0. Now, they just suffered a big injury. Diggs out for the season. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And the Commanders are 2-0. So the Giants are sitting at 1-2 in last place. They lost. This is a conference loss last night. Again, it's a game that we didn't expect them to win. Nobody really thought that they were going to be able to go in there into San Francisco and leave with a win. But you would have liked to see at least a little carryover from the great second half that they had and the great second half that Daniel Jones had. Daniel Jones threw for 300. He looked like a top 5 quarterback in the second half against Arizona. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. I get it. Arizona's not a good team. They're not a good team. And the fact that the Giants even found themselves in that position last week is just, says everything you need to know. Now, that looks like it was more the Giants team than the second half. The second half, it almost looks like last week was a fraud. It was a mirage. And because we've seen this team now 3 games, 6 halves, and 5 out of the 6 halves, they've just been god-awful. Terrible. And the offense is no good. The defense we knew the defense wasn't going to be great. If the teams are going to target, they're going to double and triple team Thibodeau. That's what they're going to do. He's their only real pass rushing threat because Williams isn't getting to the quarterback anymore. It's a mess. It's a mess in Giantstown here, and they are 1-2, and the season is slowly. You can see it slipping away now. This looks more like the Giants teams that we saw the 5 previous years, not the one that we saw last year. And you thought they'd be improved. Waller did not really get involved too much yet last night. He didn't, not like he did in the Arizona game. And the Giants now are limping into Seattle with a 1-2 record. Barkley's not going to play next week. Thomas is going to be questionable. He's still got the hamstring issue. That's usually a 3-4 week thing. The high ankle sprain with Barkley, the Giants are in trouble. The Giants are in trouble. Daniel Jones, you can't really put this on him. Does he look good? No, he doesn't look great. But he shouldn't be rushing as much. He's the third leading rusher on designed running plays in the league. It should be a running back. And you have Saquon Barkley. I mean, Jones is only thrown for 560 yards in this season, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks. This looks like the Daniel Jones that we saw the first couple years, not the Daniel Jones that we saw last year. Last year, he protected the ball. He cut down on the mistakes, and I told you before the season that he was going to need to get 7s, not 3s. And what happened last night? They got a couple field goals. They went for 2 on the 1 touchdown they scored. They didn't get it, but there was also the safety, which I think that was the safety. They marked him at the 1-yard line, but either way, it's not like it would have mattered. The Giants came in there 10-point underdogs, and the game went basically exactly how we thought last night's game would go. 30-12. San Francisco, the better team. They dominated the game. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They dominated the time of possession. They dominated the yards gained. Everything was just weighted well towards San Francisco, and the Giants did not play a good game. And like I said, I didn't think the Giants were going to come out of there with a win. I didn't. But I would have liked to have seen them compete a little bit better. On a short week, you knew it was a tall task, especially with Barkley out, Thomas out, but you would have liked to seen a little bit more, a little bit, put up a fight if you're going to go in there. Put up a fight against San Francisco. Give them a game. Make them earn it. Make them go out there and get a win and earn a win, a tough win. And the Giants didn't do that. The game was 3-3 through the first quarter, so they kind of hung in there. But once San Francisco and Purdy got the offense moving, they punched it into the end zone, and then they made it 17-3, and it was over right there. You knew the Giants weren't going to score 17 points. They couldn't move the ball at all. They could not get it. They had trouble getting any yards. I mean, 4 rushes for 29 yards for Breida. Now, you don't expect much from Breida. He scored the touchdown, but 4 rushes for 17 yards, not 29. Slayton was their leading receiver, 3 catches, 32 yards. Now listen to Purdy's stats. Now, if you look at Purdy for the year, he's thrown almost 800 yards. He's got 4 touchdowns, no picks, 77 QB rating. That is the last pick in the draft. Every single team passed over this guy 5-6 times. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's leading a 3-0 team, one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And the Giants have just gave Daniel Jones $40 million this year, and he's not doing anything like that. Purdy was 25 of 37, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns. McCaffrey, who seems to be, playing like he did 2-3 years ago when he was on Carolina, 18 catches, 85 yards, a touchdown. Samuel, 6, I'm sorry, that was rushing for McCaffrey. Samuel was their leading receiver, and he had 6 catches for 129 yards. The Giants' leading receiver was Slayton, 3 catches, 32 yards. Now, a lot of that has to do with the pass protection. The Giants have had any success that they've had this year has been off of the play action. And when you're rushing for 4 rushes for 17 yards, there's no play action that's going to work. Nobody's buying that you're running the ball. So the defensive line is able to just pin their ears back, come after you, pass rush. The defense can't stop them. You got guys that can't stop them anyway. And now that they know you're throwing the ball, they're not even going to think about the play fake. They're not buying it. They're not biting it for it to give the quarterback that extra second or two. Your only hope is to set up screens, which they didn't really do. And like I said, the game went basically as expected. And the Giants again now find themselves in trouble. And Brian Dable, this team has come in not ready now. 2 of these 3 games, they basically weren't ready last night. I'm not saying that it's his fault. It was a bad coaching job, but you got to have some more fight in this team. You got to have them go out there and put up a fight. The game was over at halftime. All 3 of these games were basically over at halftime. If it wasn't for a miraculous comeback in the second game against a bad Arizona team, the Giants would be they'd be one of the worst teams in the NFL. They are not in good shape. They are not looking like a playoff team. And, how disappointing is it? We looked forward to football because we thought we had some good teams. We thought we were going to have a good, interesting season. And Rodgers goes down after 4 plays. And the Giants turned out they stink. And now here we are, now staring down. Now we're looking forward to basketball and hockey with the Rangers, the Knicks, and St. John's. Hopefully they can give us a season, because I don't see it from the Giants now. They're going to Seattle. They're playing Seattle this next week. It's not going to be easy. The Giants' schedule is not easy. The division is hard. You got 2 teams in the division who are 2 of the top teams in the conference. So the Giants 1-2 last place. Like I said, you got all 3 teams ahead of them are 2-0, including the surprise, which is the Commanders. Now, I don't expect the Commanders to be competing for the division with Dallas and Philadelphia when it comes down to it, but you never know. You never know if they get a couple more wins. The Giants, now there's going to be distance between them. It's not good, and it all starts with the offensive line. I feel like we're always talking about the offensive line with the Giants, like for years, since back with Eric Flowers. False starts, missed assignments, not blocking, guys just running right through the line. The Giants have rebuilt this offensive line. That's the problem too. They spent a lot of draft capital rebuilding this offensive line, and it stinks. It stinks. 5 out of 6 halves, it's just been free for all for the front 4, and these are teams now that didn't even blitz much. Dallas didn't blitz much. Arizona blitzed a little bit in the first half, and last night San Francisco didn't have to blitz. Nobody was open. Jones couldn't get anything going. He was running around. And as far as the Giants' defense goes with Wink, I don't know what happened here, because they're not blitzing either. The Giants' defense has not been good. Now, we knew they were going to have to. Now, last year, they weren't a very good defense, but the brilliance of Wink Martindale and his blitzes and the way he blitzed and the schemes and the timing of the blitzes was brilliant. And he threw people off. He threw off quarterbacks, and he was able to have them make mistakes, and that's how the Giants won. They got special teams play. They got turnovers last year. They didn't turn the ball over. And when you're a mediocre to not great team, that's what you have to do. You have to win by turning the ball over, protecting the ball, and special teams plays. And the Giants have done none of that so far this season, and we're 3 games in. Listen, look, next week's going to mark the quarter pole of the season. So another big game next week against Seattle. We'll see. We'll see if they come out. They have 10 days now to prepare for it. It's a must win. It's almost a must win for the Giants again. You don't want to go to 1-3, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're going to be 2-7, and you're going to be playing out the string. As far as the Jets go this week, the Jets have their old friend, the Patriots, into town. They haven't beat the Patriots in 7 years. It's been 7 years since the Jets. They've 14 straight losses for the Jets against the Patriots, against Bill Belichick, a lot of them against Tom Brady, and the Jets have to win this week. And this is a winnable game for the Jets. It's at home. They can win this game. And I don't know if it's going to creep into their head, because clearly New England is in the Jets' head, right? 7 years. A lot of these guys were in high school when the Jets and Fitzmagic beat the Patriots in overtime for the last time 7 years ago. So you got a decent, not a good team. The Jets are a better team than the Patriots. The Jets defense has to play better. They're better than they were last weekend. Now, last weekend they played Dallas, which is, again, a good team. I expect the Jets defense to really step it up this week, play well, and beat New England. You're at home. It's a division game. You have to win this game. For the Jets to have any chance this season, they're going to have to win the games that they can win. Now, there's also reports they went after a couple quarterbacks. They made an offer to Chad Henne. He declined. He said that he's not interested in coming back and playing for the Jets. And Tom Brady, I told you the Tom Brady thing was ridiculous. I don't even know why he spoke on it, but he put to bed that he's not coming to play for the Jets. And to be honest with you, if I'm a Jets fan, I know Tom Brady would be nice to come in here, if he still had it and he decided to come in. The last thing you want is to have Tom Brady the hated enemy, the Patriots, to come in here and help you get your Super Bowl. That's the last thing you want. You'd rather lose than have Tom Brady be the one have to come in and be the savior and get you to Rodgers in the playoffs. And that would just create a disaster anyway. What if Tom Brady was good and then Rodgers is ready to come back in the playoffs? What do? You got 2 all-time quarterbacks. I mean, it would have been a disaster. I'm surprised Brady even commented on it, but he did put it to bed that he is not interested. He's not coming back. He's going to be working in the booth with Fox. So, that was a ridiculous rumor. The Jets, like I said, Chad Henne, you don't want Chad Henne either. They're going to need somebody. Zach Wilson's gotten better. From what I've seen, Zach Wilson's footwork has gotten better. He's a little bit better than last year. He's just not good enough. He doesn't have the talent to be an NFL starting quarterback to take a team and lead them into the playoffs. And especially if they were to get into the playoffs. He's not Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez was better. Mark Sanchez got them to the AFC Championship game twice. Now, he wasn't the reason they went, but he could at least get them. He played serviceable enough. Zach Wilson is not good enough. This was a bad evaluation by the Jets scouts when they took him. I don't know what they saw. He has not been good. He has improved from last year, but he just doesn't have the talent. He's not going to get much better because the talent's not there. He's almost getting the most out of his talent. He's a borderline backup in this league. And I think at the end of this year, you probably won't see him much. They're not going to be able to groom him into the starter that they want, especially now it looks like Rodgers is going to sign on for a 3rd year. He seems very confident that he's going to come back for the playoffs, but this team's not going to make the playoffs. They're not good enough. They're not good enough on offense. We have no offense in this town. The Giants can't block anybody. The Jets can't block anybody, but they're better than the Giants, but they have a quarterback who can't get the ball to where it needs to go. You can't dink and dunk your way down the field if you're Zach Wilson. That's what he does. He's late with the ball all the time. As soon as those receivers release in their routes, he's not throwing the ball, and then he has to check it down, and he has a bad mistake somewhere, and the whole thing goes to hell. So it's not a good start to this football season for either team here. Now, the Jets, what they're going to have to do this weekend, and I think they should, like I said, I think they should win this weekend. I think they're better than the Patriots. The Jets have a good defense. They got to play like it. Okay, the Patriots are good in the red zone. You know Belichick's going to have them ready. You know he's going to scheme well against the Jets. Just play up to your talent, and you should be able to stop the Patriots. The Jets are good in the red zone defense. They're 7th in red zone defense. The Patriots are the 4th best in the red zone in scoring. Just stop them. You got to stop them. Hold them to 3. Hope you get some short fields, get a turnover or 2, get another special teams play. When you're talking about both these teams needing turnovers and special teams plays, you're not in a good position. And it's not even Halloween yet. It's not even October yet. Forget about Halloween. It's not even October yet. So I do think the Jets will win this week. I do. But, I mean, the Giants got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out quick. These guys are going to get Daniel Jones killed, and he's running the ball way too much. Even the designed runs. He's 2nd in the NFL in plays designed for him to run. He's been sacked. He's been killed. He's got 2 touchdowns and 4 picks. This is the Daniel Jones of a couple years ago. And, hey, listen, it's not going well. So I want to get to, before we do the baseball stuff, as baseball comes down now, 10 days left in the season, the Yankees are right there. 1 game over 500. Will they continue their? That's the only drama left around here. You got Tommy Pham spitting off his mouth about the Mets and the way they don't work, and we'll get to all that, and we'll get to the playoff scenarios in the last week coming up in just a minute. But now I want to welcome in our guest for today, special guest. His name is Marty Smith. He's from ESPN. You know him well. He's the Southern guy. He does College Game Day. He does NASCAR. He does everything. He's all over the networks. He's all over every one of the networks. He's all over the ESPN Plus, College Game Day. So here's my interview. I spoke with him about his new book. Here's the interview with Marty Smith from ESPN. Enjoy the interview. All right, now we'd like to welcome in our guest. He's been with ESPN since 2006. He's hosted shows on the network such as SportsCenter Presents, Marty Smith's America. He's best known for his NASCAR coverage and his work on College Game Day. He is a New York Times bestselling author. He's one of the most entertaining and interesting personalities on ESPN, and he's got a new book coming out September 26th called Sideline CEO, Leadership Principles from Championship Coaches. His name is Marty Smith. Marty, welcome to the show.
Really appreciate it, man. Thank you for the time, for the platform, and opportunity just to share a little bit about Sideline CEO.
Absolutely. I was just telling him right before we came on. I said it's the kind of book that I like, that because you don't have to read the whole thing. You don't have to read 30, 40 pages. You read 2 or 3 pages, get a couple inspirational quotes for your day, and you're good to go for the rest of the day.
In today's world, honestly, brother, that was by design. And in today's world where we have so many inputs all the time and, quite frankly, so many distractions all the time, I tried hard to figure out how to make this book extremely digestible. And it's funny kind of how it came to me. As I started the process of writing it, I started doing the interviews before I really knew how I wanted to format the book. And during COVID, I wanted to read a book every 10 days because I wanted to be out of my phone as much as I could. I didn't want to just sit around and be in my phone and scroll for an hour and a half and be like, hell, where'd that hour and a half just go? And so one of the books that I ordered was called I Want My MTV. And I laid down in a bed and I started reading the book, and it was written in that sort of oral history type of format where it would be like MTV, VJ, 3 sentences. David Lee Roth, 1 sentence. Viacom executive, a paragraph, whatever. And I shot up out of my bed. I'm like, that's it. That's how I need to do this. And so I broke it up into those 8 sort of silos of leadership or pillars of leadership and dive into each of those pillars with all 20 of the individuals. I think that there's tutelage and wisdom in those pages that people can pluck, like you said, and sort of envelop or inject into their daily walk. I certainly have.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. He interviews some of the greats. I mean, you got Saban, you got Mac Brown, Doc Rivers, Dabo Sweeney, Frank Beamer, Tom Izzo. Was there something that you learned? Like, were you surprised at any of the coaches that you interviewed?
I don't know if surprised is. They definitely shared some stories with me that make you sort of take a step back, that stop time. And, whether that's Mac Brown sharing with me about when his player at Texas, Cole Pittman, passed away in a truck accident and the Texas Highway Patrol called Mac to identify the body based on the championship ring that the young man was wearing, or whether that's Doc Rivers being so candid with me about the aftermath of the Donald Sterling controversy in Los Angeles when Sterling owned the Clippers and Doc was the general manager and head coach of the Clippers. And all of those stories just were really deep. I mean, there was just so much vulnerability there that those folks shared with me, on top of the value of things like trust and communication and shutting your mouth and opening your ears and listening. Because if you're listening, you're not guessing what you're going to be saying next. You're consuming intently what that person is saying to you, and you are responding in kind. And as a result, you're genuinely showing that person you care about them. All of those things are applicable. And I just thought that it was in totality, it's a neat little educational tool.
Yeah, it shows that, like, because Doc Rivers isn't like a loud screaming guy. It shows that a lot of people, you don't have to be a vocal leader just to be a leader. You could be you could lead by example. There's many different ways to lead, but some leaders have certain things in common. What did you find that all of them kind of had in common?
Tremendous self-confidence, the willingness to evolve, and not remain static. And the number one trait is, with great care and trust of your words and actions, you bring people with you, especially when they don't believe they're capable of doing it themselves. And leadership is not power. Leadership is influence. Can you, through that trust of your words and actions, get a group of people to come with you to achieve a goal or achieve an objective?
So you're saying
that's leadership. And certainly each of these individuals in the book do that, and they do it in such a high pressure, win now or you're gone type of context.
Now you say, sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
I was going to say, well, you say that leadership is not power, but with leadership and influence comes power.
Absolutely, it does. Can you harness it?
Well, you can't really.
Can you harness the power? Can you take the responsibility given and use it to motivate, or use it to tear down? Because, power is an intoxicating thing, man. Power is a very intoxicating thing. And so if you can take we're using the word power. The word is really responsibility. And can you take that with all that you've learned and the very unique personalities that you have every single year and or day with the personnel in your stead,
they have coffee coming
and
back.
teach them in a way that's consumable to each individual? Because no two people take in information or leadership the same way. People learn differently at different paces.
32 and 11.
And so all of that is part of that leadership power. You don't treat everyone the same, to quote Roy Williams and Jimbo Fisher in the book. You don't treat everyone the same. You treat everyone fairly. And that doesn't mean the context is the same for every person, because it's not.
Yeah, that I thought it was interesting. I forget who had said it, which one I read, where he said, someone shows up late to a meeting. If it's a freshman, he's going to be getting a lot more trouble. Roy Williams, correct. He's going to get in a lot more trouble than say if one of his seniors shows up late. And it's not that he's treating them differently. He's just treating them fairly.
It's because that senior, through those years of work and daily demand of self to find the best self, so that the team can thereby collectively be its best self, you've earned the right to get some latitude and grace for a mistake if you're a senior. But that doesn't mean every senior. Again, the context for every person is different.
I completely agree. Now you interviewed both men's coaches and women's coaches. Do you find any difference between the men and the women and how they approach leadership?
Well, there are certainly differences between the individual personalities of all 20 of the people, but based on gender, no.
Okay.
Because, some of us are born with tremendous empathy, and so as a leader, I think about Patty Gasso, who is the amazing head softball coach at Oklahoma, who just won her 7th national championship. She was sharing with me that the words she kept hearing from her team was trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. And she doesn't want a culture where they fear trouble. She wants a culture where it's an open door and you can come to me, because in today's world, these athletes want peace. And again, it comes so many different inputs. And, you're not going to hear that from every coach. So I think, each person, while the core principles might have some consistency, I think your natural personality and your natural evolution as a person also play into who you are as a leader.
That's actually an excellent point. Now, I always found it interesting. Somebody like, let's say, Nick Saban, he's a legendary all-time college coach. He's right up there for anybody out there. He's right up there with him.
The greatest ever.
But it doesn't translate. It hasn't, or at least for him, it hasn't translated into the pros. Why do you think that his stuff works in college, but it just hasn't worked in the pros? Or do you think it does? He just hasn't had the right teams.
I think if he'd have had more time. So you got to go back to again, I hate to keep using the word context, brother, but I believe life is context and repetition. But the context of the Miami Dolphins in that time, he desperately wanted the leadership of the Dolphins to take Drew Brees. That didn't happen. So then, they were on the ascension in Miami when he left. Now he did, I think, you go back to the press conferences, he certainly made it clear, like, I'm not going to be the head coach at Alabama, and then ultimately he was the head coach at Alabama. I think Urban Meyer too. I think their coaching style is more conducive to these young men who are in the process of growing from boys to men, from high school boys into NFL men, and that very direct, very aggressive approach works with them. But when you play for them, you know what you get coming in. Now, NFL players who make a lot of money, they ain't trying to hear that, man.
College players make money now, though, too. College players make money now, too.
They do, some of them. But even though the college football that I fell in love with is extinct, it's still not the NFL. Now, if we get to the place where we're profit sharing the television money at the player level, you and I can have another conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting with the transfer portal and with everything going on. Now, people like Nick Saban and the old school coaches, they don't like it. But somebody like, say, Deion Sanders, he's taken full advantage of it. He took a 1-11 team. He basically stripped it of all the players. He brought his players in. Do you not like the NIL? Do you not like the transfer portal? What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree that players should be able to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. I struggle with the fact that it is the Wild West right now. The coaches all use the word guardrails. There are no guardrails, to the point that some states have passed legislation to have greater leverage to pay high school players to commit to those universities.
Yeah. Okay, good.
There is no uniformity. There is no commissioner. There is no oversight. So, I mean, look, if we get to a point, I'm all for a player who is like Shadur Sanders right now. Okay, let's take Deion's son, playing phenomenally. If any company or any booster or any person wants to pay Shadur to endorse a product or to go to a birthday party or sign some autographs, whatever the context is, he's earned it. But, that's what it was originally meant to be. You can earn money based on your name and in. That's not what it is, brother. It's pay for play.
No, it absolutely
Let's just call it what it is.
It absolutely is. And the transfer, as far as the transfer portal goes, as much as I don't kind of like they're all free agents basically after every single year. Every college player, every person is a free agent after every year. The coaches got to do that. The coaches do that. And some of the greats have done it plenty of times. You even said like Nick Saban and Urban Meyer. They'll recruit these kids for years. They'll sit in the parents' living room. They'll tell them how they're going to take care of their kid for 4 years. And then they get a better offer or they get an offer from the NFL and they hightail it out of town. So I don't feel too bad for the coaches when it comes to the transfer portal and them losing players.
I only feel bad really for where we are right now. I feel worst for the high school player who's on the borderline of getting a scholarship offer from a university, but they keep pushing the kid. They keep pushing the kid just in case there's a young man who's already developed who jumps in the portal that could take that spot.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point.
That's who I feel bad for.
And I'll tell you who I also don't feel bad for is the NCAA, this has basically rendered them powerless. If it wasn't for the NCAA tournament, which they make a boatload of money off of from CBS, there would be no NCAA. They're basically irrelevant.
Well, what they just did with Tez Walker at the University of North Carolina, they should be embarrassed.
Yeah, listen, the NCAA has done a lot of things. They're one money grab after another. Now, speaking of Deion Sanders, what do you think about this whole phenomenon? You can't talk about college football without Deion Sanders. It's a complete and utter turnaround at Colorado. They got some tough games coming up. They beat Colorado State in double overtime. What do you think? Where does this go for Deion in Colorado?
They do have some very tough games coming up. What he's done is remarkable. It is one thing. All right, look, it is hard to turn a culture, okay? It's hard. And he came into Colorado, and from the first address to the team, made it clear he was turning the culture. So he comes in, he injects his energy, he injects his resume, he brings in his guys, and they flip that culture immediately. He got great players in there who believe in him as much as he believes in them. And what are the things that the human element desires? Hope and belonging. He has instilled hope and belonging within the University of Colorado's football culture.
Now,
they have become the biggest story in the sport, and he has already proven the vast majority of people wrong. Now, look, I don't get paid to prognosticate or pick games. They pay my colleagues all them millions of dollars to do that. I don't know what the future is going to be this season for those guys, but I can bet you this. If I'm a big-time 4 or 5-star stud, and, for the last several years I've had the standard Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Florida State, Texas, whomever on my big board, I am looking out the Boulder because that looks fun, really fun. And Deion's a coach that is leading these young men with love. And look, he's gonna slay in recruiting.
Yeah. Well, Deion never does anything without, unless it's with a big splash. Anything that's
But he's a great dude. Have you ever been around him?
I haven't. But
he
seems like
the blessing of spending. Dude, he is a great dude.
Yeah, I believe
and
it.
Obviously a great leader. Going back to CEO, these college football coaches are the CEO of these programs, and he is a damn good one.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, they're the highest paid employee of the state. So I mean, they got to be like the CEO. Now, now with the success of Colorado, back to Colorado, with Shedeur Sanders and with Travis Hunter, do you think more schools will now look at the HBCU colleges and look at those players maybe to get them through the transfer portal? Maybe it gives them more of an advantage to get it into a Power 5 school?
Don't even know. I don't know how to even begin to guess. But what it's most certainly done is prove to anybody and everybody who's paying attention, and because of how well they're playing, more people are paying attention, that those athletes are great athletes.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Great athletes. I mean, look, Travis Hunter was the number one player in his class, and he chose Deion. So, he is such a dynamic athlete on both sides of the ball, and everybody thought he was going to Florida State, and ultimately he goes, nope, I'm going to go play for Coach Prime at Jackson State. And, of course, he followed Coach Prime out west, but they have definitely opened a lot of eyes, those two young men this year.
What do you think about the basically the jumping of schools that are out of the Pac-12? They're all going, basically, are we heading towards a two-conference or a two-conference system here? The playoff expands, but all these teams are now jumping conferences. What do you think about that?
Again, the college football that I fell in love with as a young person is extinct.
Yeah.
It has potential. I'm very curious to see how it unfolds with, Cal and Stanford in the ACC, and with UCLA and USC and others making their way to the Big Ten. And what does that look like for non-revenue sports or Olympic sports when they have to fly across? If you are UCLA or USC or Oregon or Washington or whatnot, and you're going to Rutgers, you're going to Piscataway, New Jersey to play a game, I'm sure their plan, I'm not talking to anybody about this, but I imagine their plan is to kind of double those up where they're playing those back-to-backs. But nonetheless, I'll be curious to see how it unfolds. Ultimately, it goes back to journalism 101, follow the money, and the money is these grant of rights for the Big Ten and the SEC are so massive for each school that it is self-preservation and making sure that you have a future.
Well, I mean, USC could bring their practice squad to beat Rutgers and then play Penn State with their real guys the next week, you know? But now what was I going to say? Give us a story from give me something. What's the craziest campus you've been to as far as college game day and with everything you do? The craziest, like, wild campus that you've been to?
Well, I would say LSU. There's no atmosphere. We were just in Starkville, Mississippi last weekend, and that was amazing until the game got underway and LSU just kind of ran them out of the stadium. But LSU is amazing, man. There is nothing like Death Valley on Saturday night.
That's what I've always said that. I've always said I want to go to an LSU Saturday night game. You have to. Bucket list. Not only do I highly recommend it, it should be bucket list for every single person listening right now. Yeah, I agree. I've always said that. I've always been like that environment, that just with the way the crowd's on top of you, it looks like an unbelievable atmosphere. And there's a lot of great ones out there in college football.
Look, whiteouts at Penn State. Mm-hmm. Whiteouts at Penn State are just electric.
The Swamp.
Of course, it's so loud when they're singing "Won't Back Down." It is just so emotional. But going back to LSU, when they're singing "Calling Baton Rouge" and the whole damn place is swaying back and forth, 100,000 strong. When Clemson runs down the hill, Virginia Tech enter Sandman. I mean, these places, there are still some I've never been to that I want to go to. So I've never been to Camp Randall.
Okay.
I want to go to Wisconsin. I've never been there. I'm sure it's amazing. But that's the beauty of college football, man. What makes college football better than everything else is that pageantry and that tradition and the band, that drum. Like, it's just like fathers and sons and families and passing it down. And it's just like, my in-laws are all like, I married a Jersey girl, right? They're all Philadelphia Eagle lunatics. Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, they're nutso about their city's team. They don't really care about college sports. And it's the exact opposite in the South where I grew up. We care about college sports. It is a lineage. It is like bloodline stuff. And we don't pay that much mind to pro sports.
Yeah, I'm in New York, right? I'm in New York here, and I've asked multiple people why is it that college football doesn't catch on like it does in the South, and it's basically because we don't have it up here. What do we have? We have Rutgers.
Well, you do have great pro.
Rutgers isn't LSU.
You have great pro traditions.
Correct. We have great pro traditions, and we love our pro teams, and we're great sports towns. We just don't have that. We don't have that. That LSU or the Big House or the Penn State kind of atmosphere here in New York or anywhere near it. So, you get Rutgers, and when they're good, that gets good. The pandemonium at Piscataway a couple years ago when they were good, but it's not the same as like an LSU or a Michigan or a Penn State or something like that. Tell us something about Corso.
I mean, look, he's the sweetest
he's
guy.
He's a great guy, right?
And seeing that moment last weekend between
that was great.
Him and Kirk after Coach was making his 400th headgear pick, and Kirk has been so sweet to Coach Corso, and his care is so obvious, and his appreciation for how Coach Corso was so good to Kirk when Kirk was first starting out and so green. And Coach held his hand and showed him TV and reminded him the very first letter in ESPN is entertainment, honey.
Yeah, and Kirk is all over the place now. He does a great job.
Look, he's just the standard. I mean, he's the best.
Yeah,
and just I don't know how he keeps that schedule. It's crazy how much he does each weekend, but he's so brilliant at all of it.
He's certainly one of the best. All right, well the name of the book is Sideline CEO. Marty Smith is the author. You know him from College Game Day. You know him from NASCAR. Everything on ESPN. Marty, I want to appreciate you giving us a couple minutes here, and then everybody go out and buy that book. It's a great job.
Please do. You can get it anywhere on September 26th. I appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you, Marty. Appreciate you giving us a couple minutes here.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Good luck with everything. All right, how about that? Marty Smith, thank you again for coming on and giving us a couple minutes. That's a big name, guys. That's a big name. Marty Smith, Marty Smith is a big get for us right there. Listen, he loves Saban. I disagree with him with the Miami thing about Saban. I wasn't going to get into it with him just because I know how he feels. Like greatest ever, this and that. And I'm not debating whether Saban's the greatest ever. But Saban also went, let's see how he does now with Dion and with the NIL and with the transfer portal. And it's not too good. Okay, he's already got a loss. If they lose this week and they got a tough game this week, they're out of the playoff picture. As far as Dion and Colorado go, it's not. Now is when it gets real for them. Okay, you got Oregon in Oregon this week. Then you get USC in USC, and those are two games where they're a 20-point underdog this week. Hunter is out for a couple weeks after the late hit. The kid got death threats that made the hit. Dion came out and shut that down real quick. I mean, we don't need any of that. You don't need to be giving a kid death threats, all right? It wasn't even that dirty of a hit. It was a late hit. Hunter got hurt. It's a tall ask for Dion and Colorado this weekend, but so was the first week against TCU. So I'm not going to rule them out. I would say take the points. I would say they keep it close. And hopefully they can pull out a win. I'll be sitting there rooting hard for them. I'm all in on Dion and Colorado Buffaloes, and take the points. 20 points. Listen, and maybe the magic continues and they could beat Oregon and then go in. If they somehow win this game and they beat USC, then look out. Then they're national title contenders. I don't expect them to win this game, and I don't expect them to win the next game. I expect them to probably be 3-2 after 5 games, which would be a monumental success. That's a huge success. The team won 1 game. They haven't been relevant in 15 years. Now they got the game of the week. They got the next 2 weeks. They're going to be the game of the week. ESPN is setting up for weeks out there. You're going to have Herb Street and Fowler are going to be on the game probably the next 2 weeks. They're going to be the ABC, the premier game, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And you know what? Just go out there and try and win. You got nothing to lose. You're the darlings of the country right now. Everybody loves Dion, except for the coaches such as, Saban and those traditional Southern, they don't want anything to change because it was running just fine for them as far as they were concerned. The SEC was in the title game every year. They were hands down the best conference, and they still are. But, now here comes Colorado out of nowhere, and they're a bit shaken. It's a bit shaken. So, but again, we want to thank Marty Smith. Like I said, it's a good book. Pick up the book. We'll go throw a link in the comments down on YouTube. It's not something you have to sit down and read. It's got like little blurbs from different coaches, from all the great coaches. Most of them are college coaches. He does have a few NFL coaches in there, and it's interesting. It's interesting to see what they say about leadership and the traits they look for and the stories they tell. I'm still not done with it, but listen, give it a shot. It's a good book. We want you to read all the books that we highlight here on the show. That's why we highlight them. We're trying to get you to buy some books, so buy some damn books, would you? As far as baseball goes, the Yankees have been playing better. They seem to have leveled off a little bit here. We're down the home stretch, the last final 10 days. Obviously, nothing as far as playoffs or scenarios for the teams here. The Yankees are trying to get stay over 500. It's been a long time since they finished under 500. I had said earlier that I thought if they finish under 500, that it could be it for Boone. I don't know what they're going to do. I really have no idea. I think Cashman's staying. I think that's probably already set in stone, that Cashman's staying. And I don't know about Boone. I think Boone probably stays too. And I think there'll be an uproar from the crowd, from the fans for like 2 weeks. And then they'll kind of settle down. The Yankees will sign a free agent or two, and they'll be right back where they were. And it's not a good team. The Yankees are not a very good team. I mean, they're all right. They're an average. They're on the lower end of average, right around 500. but they're not in the playoffs. And that's what matters, right? Because the Yankee fans, if they're going to scream and yell the championships, it's championships are a bust, then you got to own this. You got to own this season as a failure. Now, like I said, they played better lately. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They're right there. They're game over 500. And we'll see if they do. I don't think they're gonna. I had said earlier I don't think they're gonna finish over 500. I'm gonna go down with the ship and say that they're not gonna finish 500. They'll finish below 500. You know what? To be honest with you, they'll probably finish 81-81. I mean, right? That's probably what'll happen. As far as the Mets go, Kodai Senga has really been the star of the team this year. Besides Alonso, obviously, and the Mets with Alonso, it looks like they're gonna get it done. It looks like he's not going to be traded. It looks like they're going to get the deal done this winter, which is what I said. If you're going to get it done, you got to get it done this winter. Because you don't want to go into next year and be, falling out of the race and near the trade deadline and then get rid of Alonso for a rental. If you're going to trade him, make the decision. I have no issue with trading him. And if you're going to trade him, make the decision and get rid of him this winter so you get a good return back. But it looks like they have a deal as far as money goes. Now it's just a matter of years. They're a couple years apart. They're going to come together. You're going to, in the next couple of weeks, probably the week after the season ends, maybe 2 weeks after, before the winter meetings, there'll be a report that Alonso and the Mets have reached a long-term deal to make him a Met for life. And, he'll end up being one of the greatest Mets of all time. They will retire his number. He will hold all the offensive records when it's all said and done, barring any catastrophic injury. And the Mets don't have that. Mets have never had that, right? They've always been, they get rid of their players. They get rid of Nolan Ryan, Strawberry, Gooden. Piazza came late. He had Piazza's best years were with the Dodgers. We got the end of his prime. So Pete Alonso, David Wright got his career cut short, of course, with the back. I think it's good that they're getting it done. I think they Steve Cohen, I don't know why you would play hardball with Alonso. I don't know why you throw money, as much money as anybody wants at everybody else, and then you decide to play hardball with Alonso. It just didn't make sense to me. Like what? Why? The guy's going to hit 48, 50 home runs. He's going to drive in 130 RBIs. He's been nothing. He's given no trouble. He doesn't say anything wrong in the press. Make the guy a lifetime Met. He's gotten better at first base. He's still average first baseman, but he works on it. So give him the deal. I don't know why Cohen and the Mets decide that they're going to play hardball with Alonso. It never made sense to me. So I was okay if they traded him. But it looks like they're going to make a deal. Like I said, they've come to terms on the money. Now it's just the years, and they'll get it worked out. They're a couple years apart. I get it, but they'll get it worked out. As far as Buck goes, I don't know what to think with Buck. There's reports that are all over the place. There's reports that he was going to resign, that he was going to, after the season. There are reports that he wants to stay with the team. There are reports that the Mets want to get rid of him. So I don't know what's going to happen with Buck. Either way. You go with either way. I mean, come on. We wanted Buck for how long? He was manager of the year last year. They won 101 games. Just leave him. Leave it be. Buck is not the problem. Okay, Buck Showalter is not the problem. Has he had a great year? He hasn't had a great year. But he is certainly not the problem on this team. They have no pitching. Okay, the pitching that they thought they were going to get from the future Hall of Famers, all-time greats, just never materialized. And Scherzer has gone. Now he got released. He got waived because he got injured with the Rangers. And that was the problem here. The bullpen stunk, but Kodai Senga is the star of the team. He should win Rookie of the Year, to be honest with you, and he should get some votes for Cy Young as well. Now he's got one more start left. He's been great down the stretch here. He's reliable, and he's only going to get better next year. He will probably be your opening day starter next year, barring they throw a bunch of money and get somebody else in here. But Kodai Senga, listen, he's been everything as advertised. He's gotten better as the year has gone on. He's going to win Rookie of the Year, I think, and he's going to get votes for Cy Young. Now, the other news this week with the Mets was Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham came out and said that this is the least hardworking team in the big leagues. Now, first of all, that doesn't even make sense. That statement, it's like a double negative. The least hardworking team. Like, well, what is that? First of all, I just wanted to say that because that makes no sense. Second of all, listen, this is the Tommy Pham experience, okay? This is what Tommy Pham does. He brings race up all the time. He goes to places, he leaves, and then he burns bridges. That's what Tommy Pham does. He's not a bad ball player. He's a good ball player. But he all the time, he'll bring race up about things. If something doesn't go his way, he throws the race card, he plays the race card. I'm not saying that he's wrong with the race card, but he that's his go-to. And then he also burns bridges. He burns bridges. He got on Mike Trout in LA. Now he's doing, it's just everywhere he goes. That's what he does. That's the Tommy Pham experience. The end of the Tommy Pham experience is always him trashing something about your team, your organization, your players, something. That's what he does. I wouldn't pay any attention to it, to be honest with you. You got Lindor, who said, I want to thank him for showing me how to work hard again. You're on a team that won 101 games last year, Lindor. Why would they have to show you how to work hard again? You had World Series expectations coming into the season. You won 101 games last year, and you're telling me you needed to be shown this year how to work hard? This is the problem with the Mets. They just make you pull your hair out with this team. If you follow them every day, they are just the most frustrating team. Now, Nimmo's had a good year. I'm starting to think that McNeil might not be in the future plans for this team. He didn't have a good year, but I still think McNeil is one of the better hitters. I think he just had a down year. But with the kids coming up and the kids really hitting down on the farm in the postseason, a lot of Mets affiliates are in the postseason, and they're hitting. These kids that we got, and the Mets are going to have a good team in a couple years. I don't know if there's a spot for McNeil to play every day. At second base, in the outfield. And McNeil's been good. McNeil last night had two outfield assists in one inning. He was responsible for all three outs, threw the guy out at second, and then threw a guy out at the plate on a sac fly when he was trying to score on the out. So McNeil is a good player, and I just don't know if there's room for him here in the future. I think he'll be on the team next year. But I don't see it really like 3 years down the line. And then, by then he'll be starting to get a little bit older anyway. So I like McNeil. Listen, my jersey, I have a McNeil jersey. He won the batting title last year. He's a good hitter. He's a good ball player. But I don't see him being on the team. I'm starting to, now in the last couple of weeks, I've started to realize that, there's not really a spot for this guy. When all these kids come up and he'll be getting a little bit older, there's not going to be a spot for him. But the Alonso news, good move, like it, and everything like that. So that's what's going on. The playoffs, as far as the playoff picture goes, listen, it's gonna be a wild 10 days. Okay, you got a good races for the wild card in both leagues. The American League, Tampa Bay is gonna make it. Okay, Tampa, after losing their best player, give Tampa Bay credit. They have played great since losing their best player in an arrest situation. It was, he's never gonna play again. And the way that they've responded, and that's what Tampa Bay does every year, even back with the Joe Madden teams, they had no talent. They would make the playoffs. They just grind it out every day. They win. They're not flashy about it. They're not loud. They're not making a lot of noise. They just win ball games. And they go to the playoffs on a yearly basis. So they are going to make the wild card. They're 9 games up on so forget it. Their magic number is like 2. But then for the next 2 spots, you have Toronto right now is a half game ahead of Seattle and Texas. Texas holds the tiebreakers with Seattle and Toronto. So you got those 3 teams. One of them is going to be left out. Texas, remember, traded they went for it. They got Scherzer. They went for it. They made a bunch of trades. They traded a lot of young talent in the minor leagues to make a push for the playoffs this year. Seattle kind of came out of nowhere with the great second half. Long winning streaks, multiple long winning streaks. It's going to be fascinating. And Toronto, of course, has all the kids, and they got a world of talent. That's going to be very interesting to see how that shuffles out and which team is left out of the postseason come next week. In the National League, the Phillies are going to be in. The Phillies have a 5-game cushion between the first wild card and the third wild card. Then again, there's more teams involved this time in the National League. You got Arizona, who is in the second wild card right now. They're 2 games up on Chicago and Miami. Now, the Mets just went into Miami, and they played well. The Mets were spoilers with Miami. Okay, the Mets played well. They put a big hit on the Marlins and their playoff chances, but the Marlins are still right there. They're tied for the final wild card spot with the Cubs. You got the Reds, who I'm rooting for. Love the Reds because they're out of nowhere. The Reds are the team that came out of nowhere. No one saw them. They're a half game out. And then right below them is the Giants, who are fading a bit. They're 3 out. They're now on the crest, right on the line of falling out of it. They're going to have to play real well. And then below them is the San Diego Padres, who were just hoping, who have played well. The Padres have kind of put it together here late in the season to make a little bit of a push, to make it interesting at least. But now they're going to run out of time. They're going to need collapses basically from Chicago, Arizona, Miami, and Cincinnati, all of them to basically go like, 2-7 or 1-8 over the last 9 or 10 days of the season. And they're going to have to win all their games. And is that going to happen? Probably not. But San Diego has made a bit of a push, and that's even more disappointing. It's almost like you don't want them to make the push because you know they're going to fall just short. Another note, yesterday was 22 years since the Mike Piazza 9/11 home run. Me and Brett were in the ballpark for that. I just wanted to mention it. It's the loudest I ever heard Shea Stadium, and I was at a lot of big games at Shea Stadium. We went to a lot of playoff games at Shea Stadium when they had them. A ton of big games, for at least, as many as the Mets had over those years, over my lifespan, which I shouldn't say is a ton because they didn't play a ton of games. But we were at Bobby Jones one hitter. We were at multiple playoff games. And I never heard the place sound the way it did the night Piazza hit the 2-run homer in the 8th inning in the first sporting event back after 9/11. So now, as far as this week with the NFL, you got some interesting stories going on. I'm going to get to the Bears thing in a second because that's just, I don't even know what to say about that. I'm going to get to that with their coach and the FBI, and now there's a whole new wrinkle thrown in today. It's wild. Dallas suffers a huge loss. Okay, Trayvon Diggs is out for the season. Torn ACL in practice yesterday. This is huge news. Does this give the Eagles an upper hand on the division? I think so. I think the Eagles were already a better team than Dallas, and now with a major hit for the Cowboys going down, Trayvon Diggs is out for the season, ACL. We'll see if he does the Rodgers therapy and thinks he could come back in 2 or 3 weeks, but we'll see. Some games of note this week. You got the 0-2 Chargers visiting the 0-2 Vikings. 2 teams who had high expectations this year. 2 teams now who are 0-2. And if you go 0-3, you don't make the playoffs in the NFL. 0-3 is basically, it's like a 7% chance of making the playoffs. That's how you don't make the playoffs at 0-3. When you start with 3 straight losses, you just don't make the playoffs. Very, very few teams have. You got the Saints 2-0 at the Packers 1-1. Love has played well, better than I think most of us expected. The Saints are a surprise 2-0. That's going to be a good game. You got the Eagles and the Bucks. The Bucks at 2-0. They look like they're back a little bit. Okay, they didn't play good last week. They look like they're back. The quarterback's really playing well. The Eagles are the class of the NFC. 2-0. I expect the Eagles to win that game, but it's not going to be easy. Tampa Bay is they're upstart. They're an upstart team. Nobody saw it coming. They're kind of playing it's us against the world type of situation down there. And then you got the 1-1 Rams going into Cincinnati to play the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals, and a must-win for the Bengals. And I think they will. I think they will win. But this is a must-win for the Bengals. Like I just told you, you can't go 0-3. I don't care who you are, you can't go 0-3 and expect to have any kind of reasonable shot at the playoffs. It just doesn't happen. We've seen it a million times, and a million times they've missed the playoffs. Teams that go 0-3. I think I don't know the number, so I'm not going to give you the number, but it's very low. Teams that go 0-3 and make the playoffs. Now, Kansas City's 1-1, okay? They got the Bears coming to town. The Bears are 0-2. They're a mess. The story with the Bears, I don't know if you've seen it, if you've heard of it. Defensive coordinator for the Bears is Alan Williams. Williams last week resigned his position as defensive coordinator out of nowhere, right? He cited that he wanted to go take care of his family. He had to work on his health. He was focusing on his health and his family. And from that press conference, the rumor mill started. And the rumor mill has been wild. It's been all over the place. I've heard everything from child sex porn, to child sex ring, to drugs. And there was a report that the FBI raided both the Bears practice facility and Williams' home. Now, it turns out they did raid Williams' home. Nobody knows why. Today, it comes out that just last night, $100,000 worth of equipment was stolen from Soldier Field. $100,000 worth of equipment gone. Now, are these things linked? Who knows? Like I said, there's a million different stories out there. Nobody really knows what's going on. All we know is that he didn't resign because of health and to focus on his family. That's all we know. There's been reports that the FBI raided his house, which seems to be true. There are reports that the FBI raided the Bears practice facility, which seem to not be true. The Bears have told everybody that did not happen. They were not raided. There was no search warrant conducted on the Bears facility. Then today, so again, I've heard wild rumors, things that for everything from drugs to child sex trade to, you name it. It's been out there. Most people are not saying what they heard, but it's out there. If you look on Twitter and you just type in Alan Williams Bears, it's going to all come up. You'll see it. So now, today, there's $100,000 worth of equipment missing from Soldier Field. The report is the Bears are looking for $100,000 worth of their equipment. And it's a disaster. The Bears are 0-2. They have been terrible. The quarterback stinks. The defense stinks. And then on top of it, you got this going on, and you're just waiting for the dam to break and the story to come out, because somebody's going to eventually file a Freedom of Information Act to get the story, find out what's going on. I'm surprised they haven't filed it yet. One of these media outlets in Chicago has got to put in a Freedom of Information Act and get the story. It's not gonna stay under the rug for long. I don't know if the Bears know what's going on and they're just keeping it quiet. But like I said, all we know is that Williams resigned as the defensive coordinator, basically out of nowhere, cited health and family reasons, and the only thing we know is that he did not resign for health and family reasons. And we know that the FBI did, in fact, raid his home. So wild stuff going on with the Bears, and who knows? I mean, stay tuned, because that's only going to get better. I mean, that's only going to get more interesting, and it's probably going to get crazier and crazier as we learn more. So that pretty much does it for us here today. I want to thank Marty Smith for coming on, giving us a couple of minutes. Check out his book. It's called Sideline CEO. It's got great quotes from all the great coaches in college and everything like that. So thank you, Marty Smith, for coming on. We're going to put a link in the comments here on YouTube. Remember, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to give us 5-star rating on the podcast, to join our Facebook group. It's Locked Up Sports Podcast on Facebook. It's a Facebook group with a lot going on in there. Listen, thanks for tuning in. Giants lose. Giants got it straightened. Giants got to get their act together with the offense, the offensive line, and you can't win if you don't score points. You're not going to beat anybody scoring 12 points. And 5 out of 6 halves, the Giants have just been bad football team. Seems Daniel Jones has reverted back a little bit. I'm not putting all the blame on him because, like I said, the offensive line has been terrible. And we'll see where it goes from here. They're going to need to get a win. The Jets should beat New England this week. The Jets are better than New England. They haven't beat them in forever. The question is New England in their heads? Is Belichick in their heads? Belichick's going to bring his team ready to play. The Jets are better. Okay? Even without Rodgers, with Zach Wilson, the Jets are still a better team. They have a better defense. The defense, last week's Jets game was like this week's Giants game. Okay? It wasn't a game that they realistically were going to win. So, of course, you come out of it being like, terrible. The Jets, They had opportunities. They missed it. You can't be dropping short pick sixes. You got to stick the ball in the end zone when you get in the red zone. And the Jets are better than they were last week. And if they play up to their talent, I think they beat New England, and I think they beat them by 10 points. And finally get over the hump and win a game. Because if you want this season to go anywhere for the Jets, they're going to need to win the games that they're supposed to win. Otherwise, it's circling the drain. The Giants are circling the drain right now. And the Jets will join them if they don't beat the Patriots, because it could go south fast. So the Rangers did start practicing. Training camp opened yesterday, so the help is on the way, hopefully. God, Peter Love, you better get your act together and have this team playing well. So that's going to do it for us here. Enjoy the games, everybody. We'll be rooting for Colorado, too, again Saturday, so enjoy that. Giants lose, Jets on Sunday. We'll talk to you next week, everybody. See ya.